Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to my channel, my Loverlies. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I'm so happy you found me. I do so hope that you will like and subscribe before you leave. Become part of the Mama family. Mama's got your back, at least when makeup's concerned, and definitely when that makeup is cheap. Today is True Love Tuesday. So super excited. We're doing a first here on my channel. Today's True Love Tuesday is going to be the first true love story I have spoken about with a same-sex couple. I am so excited. We're talking about Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas. Going to be a really awesome video. They really were remarkable women, truly formidable. And I am so excited to sit here and maybe learn a little bit about them with you guys. As I tell you this love story, I will, of course, be doing my makeup. We are doing this very festive green and red kind of eye look. There's a little bit of shimmer. There's a little bit of pizzazz there. Glam and pizzazz. Anyway, it's very pretty. We're using the BH Cosmetics Passion in Paris palette. Y'all, this palette is so good. The formulas are absolutely insane. As close to perfect eyeshadows as I have ever encountered. They're truly effortless to put on the eye, so it makes this eye look so incredibly easy to do. This is the palette. I probably won't be talking too awful much about the makeup that I'm using today, but I will, of course, post everything in the description box below. And of course, if you have a question, all you have to do is send me a comment and I'll get back to you. So I don't know how super long this video is going to be today, but I'm going to go ahead and assume it's going to be at least 30 minutes long. So make sure that you have a big old cup of hot coffee or glass of sweet tea and have just a little while to sit back, relax, and hang out with me for a minute. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. I already have my eyeshadow primer on. I'm using my Milani eyeshadow primer. I'm almost out of it though, so it's very close. We're very close to opening a fresh tube of eyeshadow primer. I don't know why it makes me so happy to open a fresh tube of eyeshadow primer, but it really does. It's like the pot of gold at the end of my rainbow. I just love it. So, diving right into the story. In the late summer of 1907, Alice left behind her father and her brother in an earthquake and fire ravaged San Francisco, and just kind of went out on her own, just trying to find adventure. And in her mind, the place that she was going to find this adventure was in Paris, in the City of Lights. She had no idea what was awaiting her there, but she just knew that it was going to be something a little bit different than what she had left behind, and she was ready for different. So fast forward, she gets to Paris, and she's not there for very long until she runs into a woman by the name of Gertrude. And she was instantly smitten with this woman. She was Alice was a once very promising pianist, and she just kind of walked away from everything that she knew. She just, like I said, just wanted something different. Fast forward, she gets to Paris and she meets Gertrude. Gertrude is a writer. She is very avant-garde. She's a very unique character, and instantly, Alice is like, this is the different that I have been looking for. She says in a quote, she says, "She was a golden brown presence, burned by the Tuscan sun, and with a golden glint in her warm brown hair. She wore a large round coral brooch, and when she spoke, which was very little, or laughed, which was a lot, I thought her voice came from this brooch. It was unlike anyone else's voice I'd ever heard, deep, full, and velvety." And already then you can tell, like, this woman is completely infatuated. So Alice was instantly smitten, and she accepted the invite that Gertrude had extended to her to meet the following day. And after they met the following day. They continued to meet each other every day in quick succession, and every day turned into a week, turned into a month, turned into a year, turned into decades. They basically met, they fell together, and they never parted again, which is how my husband and I met. Really, we just kind of fell together. But I feel like those relationships, it really is fate. Fate is just kind of handing you to your person, and it really is such a special, beautiful thing. So they end up becoming pretty much inseparable over the next few weeks, and very quickly started a relationship. They were the very best of friends, and even more. So they found common ground in their devotion to Gertrude's writing. She was a very, very talented writer. Unfortunately, she didn't meet with a lot of success because her writing was not, it was not, what is the word I'm trying to look for? It wasn't how everybody else wrote. She was very, very different, had a very, very different literary approach. And because of that, people were very slow to warm up to her work. But Alice was a complete and total believer of Gertrude. She believed in Gertrude with her whole heart, soul, mind, body, everything. She just knew that Gertrude was amazing. And they bonded pretty quickly and pretty fiercely because of that. And as much as, they found common ground in their devotion to her writing, they posed a very interesting study on contrast. So you have Gertrude, and Gertrude is a pretty imposing lady. She was big, and she was hefty, and she was, what does it say? She was a hefty woman with an equally large personality, right? This big booming voice just really kind of took up the room when she walked into it, right? And then, on opposite of that, you have Alice, who was a very mousy woman. And on top of being very mousy, she was very blunt. She spoke very blunt is not the word, but she was very to the point, matter of fact, and had very, very sharp features. She very pixie-like in the way that she was described. I will post a picture. It'll be in the thumbnail. You guys can check them out. But she had pretty sharp features. Sharp features, sharp mind. And whereas Gertrude really liked to walk around in robes and flip-flops. Woman loved her some flip-flops. She walked around in robes and flip-flops, dressing almost like a cardinal or the Pope, just in very kind of voluminous robes and sandals, things like that. Whereas Alice really enjoyed walking around and being very feminine. She enjoyed flower print dresses and just she dressed. She enjoyed a good flower print sundress. And on top of that, Alice also had a very persistent facial hair. She pretty much had a mustache, and she refused to pluck it. She refused to do anything about it. Women nowadays wouldn't be caught dead with a mustache, but she rocked it like that's what God did. That's how God made her, and that's how she intended to stay by God. So she just wouldn't touch it, and it was pretty prominent. But you have this woman, I just think the contrast is so funny, because you have this woman walking around, and she's very tiny, and walking around in her very feminine flower print dresses, and then she opens her mouth, and she's blunt and not so much rude, but very to the point, and is rocking a full-blown mustache, and I just thought it was so funny. So they were very, very different in that area. For all of their surface differences, they did have quite a bit in common. From the get-go, they were both born to very prominent Jewish families in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it's, again, so crazy to me that they had to go pretty much across the world to find each other when they were born pretty much in the same city, but it's true. They were both born to very prominent Jewish families, and they had both spent years fighting. They had spent years fighting the affections and desires that made it clear they would never experience a conventional life in the United States at that time. And what this means by is they were just both gay. They both enjoyed other women, didn't really want anything to do with men romantically. And back then, this is in 1907, 1908. That was absolutely unheard of. That I mean, people are still completely hateful about it today. And could you? I mean, I can only imagine what it must have been like for them back in the day to have to, and not only that, but to have to fight themselves and to fight who they were intrinsically, because society told them that it was unacceptable for them. I just couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine. It just seems so awful. So they left. They packed their bags and they got out of there, went halfway around the world, and somehow magically found each other. And I'm so happy that they did. So they're in Paris. They're falling in love. They're building their relationship, and early in the relationship, they got to know each other better by going on very long walks around Paris. They would go. What does it say? Long walks through Paris and various places they visited. They were big travelers as well. Really enjoyed going out, seeing new things, having new experiences. Enjoyed being social as well. I do believe that Gertrude was a bit more social than Alice was. I believe Gertrude was a little bit more of a social butterfly compared to Alice. But Alice was very capable of, holding her own in any conversation. But they had many friends, and they went on many adventures. And it was during one of these long walks around town. They happened to be in Normandy at this time. The year is 1908. And Gertrude stops in the middle of their walk and basically proposes to Alice. And it is such a very beautiful moment, right? You have, it's not like they can be super open about their relationship, right? Because at this point, just in human history in general, it's still pretty taboo for them to be in any kind of romantic involvement with someone of the same gender. And because of that, they are definitely not allowed to actually get married. But that didn't stop Gertrude from proposing anyway, even though they may not have been able to legally be married. They were very much married and together in their hearts. And from this point, they just get even closer. They just bond even more. They are very well acquainted with each other's family. I know that Gertrude's family was fairly prominent in their lives. I know that they had quite a bit of correspondence between Gertrude's brother and her cousins. And in 1908 in Germany, in Normandy, Gertrude proposed and later said that she had proposed to her greatest friend. They bonded through their writing, and Alice would walk to Gertrude's apartment every single morning. She would wake up super early. Gertrude was very much a morning person. She would wake up super early. She would make the trek all the way to Gertrude's apartment. At this time, they were not living together, but she would wake up every morning and she would go to Gertrude's apartment and she would help Gertrude write. Now, she would go to Gertrude's and she would basically type Gertrude's manuscripts for her. What does it say? Alice would walk to Gertrude's apartment every morning to type the manuscript for what would become The Making of Americans. And now I don't know anything about the works of Gertrude Stein. I probably should look it up, but it's never really something that's been on my radar that much. So I can't really speak to her body of work in any way, but I do know that The Making of Americans was a fairly big hit for her. And she said that during this period of time, she would go and doing the typing of The Making of Americans was a very happy time for me. And I had hoped that it would go on forever. They're just blissful. They're blissful in the fact that they have found each other, that they found a true love. And not only have they found a love, but they found a true friendship as well. So not only do you have a lover, but you have a friend. And it's remarkable. It is quite remarkable. And then, as things progress and as most relationships tend to do, things, it's time to move in together. And they had to wait for quite a while for this specific step to be taken, because it seems as though Gertrude always had, again, the social butterfly, always had some kind of house guest. And during this time, she had to wait 3 years, to actually, like, I guess, be comfortable enough to move in with Gertrude. And then she moves in with Gertrude, and right on her heels is Gertrude's brother, Leo. And he moves in right after Alice, and so for the next 3 years, he lives with Gertrude and Alice, and they haven't been, in those 3 years, they haven't really been able to experience living together or experience alone time, really. So when he finally moves out 3 years later, they are ecstatic, and then that is when their relationship really just kind of, it goes into full bloom. That's when they fully discover each other. They can be fully open. There are no longer any men in the house. It is just the two of them. And it is a truly blissful time for Gertrude and Alice. And one of the happiest times in their relationship. So, this was so cute. Okay, so after Leo moves out, they finally have the place to themselves, and this happened by 1913. And then they experienced complete and total domestic bliss. Alice was very much the Susie homemaker of the duo. Gertrude was very much consumed by her work and consumed by her intellectual pursuits. And as well as Alice was able to keep up with her, she was very sharp-witted as well. She kind of took on a lot more of the domestic responsibilities. So she would wake up super early in the morning. And you also got to think about the fact that it's 1913, right? So servants are still very much a thing. House servants, things like that. She would wake up super early in the morning and supervise the servants. She would get the house opened up for the day. Supervise servants, open the house for the day. She would do the meal planning and type the manuscripts, basically get everything up and ready in order for Gertrude to wake up and really start her day. Gertrude, like I said before, was very much a night owl and was never up and out of bed before noon. So that gave Alice plenty of time to get the house open and get the house ready for Gertrude to start her day. So Alice really did take on quite a bit of the responsibility when it came to maintaining the household, things like that. I very much, what is the word I'm looking for? I empathize with her. I know the feeling. And on top of that, they would leave the most adorable little notes to each other throughout the house. And they would sign the notes. What was it? They would sign it DD and YD. So DD stood for darling, and YD stood for your darling. And on top of that, they would each call each other endearments. I believe that Gertrude called Alice Lovey, and Alice called Gertrude baby. Just so incredibly sweet. Just a very pure relationship built on mutual respect and trust. And they really did just have a really amazing relationship. Fast forward a little bit, they are pretty much the social hub of they were known for hosting parties. They were pretty much a social hangout for the Parisian intellectual scene. So they would host parties for artistic icons such as Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse, right? We all know those names, Picasso and Matisse, just absolutely incredible, incredible painters. And they held dinners and discussions and meetings with all kinds of different people, whether they be artists or writers, whether they be experts in whatever field they chose. They just held intellectual discussions, and they were very much into the whole, the thinking, trying to make the world a better place. They were into the arts. They were into creativity. To be a fly on the wall at even just one of those meetings would just be so, so incredible. I couldn't begin to imagine. Though, like I said, as much as Gertrude was the social butterfly of the pair, Alice was, I think she suffered with just a bit of social anxiety, and because of this, Gertrude, instead of hosting big lavish parties or things like that, she kept it to mostly intimate dinner parties or meetings, just kind of just like little sessions where they would just talk. They'd talk about creativity, talk about just be there, right? But they kept it very, very small because, again, Alice just was not a big she was not a big people person. When World War I happened, they launched themselves into helping. They delivered hospital supplies for the American Fund for the French Wounded. They would zip around France in a Ford that they had gotten from one of Gertrude's cousins, and they named this car Auntie, which I thought was so, so adorable. I can just imagine them zipping around, one mustached, one wearing big long robes, and I can just imagine them zipping around France in their little Ford, helping as much as they could, and basically just being the boss women that they were pretty much born to be. Now, I am cutting my crease really, really quickly, and you guys know how difficult it is for me to talk and cut my crease at the same time. Luckily, we're only doing a half cut crease today, so it shouldn't be that difficult. But yeah, they were very, very active when it came to helping. And even though they were not living in America, they still very much were Americans and still experienced, that pride. And also were very willing to help Americans out whenever they could. So they're delivering hospital supplies, risking their lives to help men wounded in battle. And life just got really, really crazy for a little while. So, where was I? Oh, okay. In the car that they called Auntie. So by the 1920s, their apartment was again the social hub for the Parisian literary art scene. Everything is kind of back to normal, and they're back to doing what they do best. They're back to discussing. They're back to creating. I also think that Gertrude was really good at nurturing talent. I find that she was quite a source of inspiration for multiple different, very well-known artists, whether it be writers or well-known creative types. It seems like she was very, very good at nurturing that in others. And among some of these that she very often entertained were Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald. And I know that we have spoken about both Ernest and F. Scott in a few other videos. They both seem to have gotten around quite a bit, but at this point, they are very frequent visitors to Gertrude and Alice's apartment. And Alice was often tasked with entertaining the significant others. And this is, again, where we kind of get to the point where she was very, very content to let Gertrude shine. And again, Gertrude was a very, very big personality. And I feel like she kind of desired to be that center of attention. She kind of desired, she wanted to be important. She wanted to feel important. Almost wanted to be like the loudest voice in the room. And Alice was very, very content to let her be that. There was no competition. And it seems like, especially with now, women don't see each other as friends. We see each other as competition. Like the first thought in our brains is never, ooh, I bet you she'd make a really good friend. It's always, ooh, she's prettier than me. I don't like her. And with them, it very much wasn't like that. It seems to me like Alice was a very selfless partner. She pretty much was very content to put herself on the back burner. And like I said, let Gertrude shine. She was very much okay with, letting Gertrude take up most of the space in the room. She was very happy. But do not mistake her silence. Do not mistake her willingness to be on the back burner for anything other than just a willingness, because she was fierce, and she very much was able and willing at times to go to battle, whether it be intellectually or physically. And this Mr. Hemingway found out firsthand. He was, I guess, apparently very attracted to Miss Stein, and would repeatedly would make passes at her and things like that. And Alice was not having it. Alice was like, nope. And at one point it got so bad that she had to put her foot down, and actually Mr. Hemingway was excommunicated. He was excommunicated from the apartment and from their social circle, and to a point that he was no longer allowed to have contact with Gertrude at all. And I can only assume that this must have been a great blow to Mr. Hemingway, but Alice was not having it. And as much as Gertrude was kind of, I think Gertrude was a bit oblivious to it, in all honesty, but Alice was there and Alice saw it. She read the writing on the wall and was like, nope, you're done. You're out of here. And he was, like I said, excommunicated. No more would he darken their doorway ever again. And Gertrude was just like, yep, you got it, Alice. You got it. Alice very much wore the pants in this relationship, as most of us do. It's kind of like topping from the bottom, right? You are subservient until you need something done, or you don't like what's going on, and then you let people know who the real boss is. So he was out of there. Stein really didn't receive. Oh, okay. For all her renown in the Parisian artistic circles, like I said, Stein really didn't receive she didn't receive hardly any fame or recognition for any of her work. Like I said, she had a very avant-garde kind of style to her writing, and it was a little bit difficult for some people to appreciate. But that all changed when she wrote, what was the publication? Receive any until 1933, with the publication of the autobiography of Alice B. Toklas. And this was Stein's account. This was Gertrude's account of their life together, written from Alice's point of view. And she wrote this in more of a conventional kind of way. I believe because she wanted people to read it and she wanted people to enjoy it, she tried to make this new publication as easily digestible as she could, and it worked because it was a great success. And I think on top of that, part of that also had to do with the fact that people were just curious, right? At some point, you have to realize, if you're kind of on the outside looking in, you have to realize that they're probably more than friends, and you've got to be curious about it, because again, things like that were not commonplace back then. So of course people are incredibly interested in the dynamics and things like that. So the publication did really well. It was her first hit. And then the Nazis invaded. And you have to remember at this point that both Gertrude and Alice are both very, very Jewish. They're both very, very Jewish. And the Nazis were not big fans of that. So they basically had to go into hiding. And they did this by, what did they do? The Nazi occupation of Paris in 1940 forced them out of their comfort zone. And this was an extremely demanding task for them, because at this point, they're in their 60s. Like, they're not young, spry ladies just out and about. They can just hop in a car at any time. Like, they're older women at this point. 60 years old, to be exact. And they're having to basically flee their life, flee their life in order to save their lives, because the Nazis were, basically threatening their very existence. And not only were they Jewish, but they were also gay, and that was like a no-no, right? That was a big no-no. And they avoided detection by laying low in southern France. And you might ask, well, how did they fund this, right? How are they surviving? How are they paying for their survival? And then I take you back to when they were entertaining Mr. Picasso and Mr. Matisse, right? And, they're these very inspiring, nurturing women who obviously were very important to both painters, and obviously probably received an innumerable amount of paintings by each artist. And at this point, they're incredibly successful, and their collection of paintings at this point is now priceless. It is priceless. So they funded their escape by selling a few of the paintings they had been gifted by Pablo and Henri. So they're okay. They make it through, and they avoided detection. They, of course, had to sell the art for provisions. They had to sell their art on the black market, and their collection of paintings dwindled very, very sadly. But after the war, life went back to some kind of semi-normalcy, and they were able to, kind of pick up right where they left off before the war had started. But as these things always do, they think that life is getting back to normal. They think that everything is going to be sunshine and roses again. At this point, they're very, very old. And as they are out, after the war, before we get into that, after the war, they opened their home again. And not only did they open their home to the intellectuals of Paris, but they opened their home to intellectually curious GIs as well. So again, just bringing forth that kind of nurturing, inspiring energy, and helping young GIs try to learn, try to figure out the bigger picture and things like that. Of course, they're far from home. They're alone. They're seeking encouragement. Their eyes are being opened to so many different things. And of course, Gertrude and Alice were right there to help them along. Then, not shortly after, they were doing a seeking encouragement or advice and toured Germany as part of. So they're touring Germany. And at this point, Gertrude is working with Life magazine, and she's out on an assignment. They're out on an assignment touring Germany, writing down what they see, basically writing an article for Life magazine. And before they know it, they end up in a hospital. There's something wrong with Gertrude's stomach. They don't know what's going on. All they know is that her stomach is really bothered. She's not doing well. So they're like, yes, okay, we need to go to the hospital. So that's what they do. After 4 decades of partnership, Gertrude's life was nearing its end. She actually, unfortunately, had cancer. She had cancer in her stomach. And in 1946, while on summer vacation in Western France, they ended up at the American Hospital on the outskirts of Paris. And they were kind of ushered into the waiting room. You know, hospitals, it's all very much hurry up and wait. So they're ushered into the hospital. They get in there, and they're basically, they run tests on Gertrude. Doctors are kind of back there trying to figure out what's going on. And then they reappear, and they basically tell Gertrude it's not good. They tell Gertrude it's not good. And Gertrude, in her very upfront, eloquent way, and was like, okay, so what are your answers? And the doctors didn't have any. They didn't have any answers for her. And so she said, I guess then it becomes a question. And the question pending is whether she's going to be okay or not. So they rush Gertrude in for surgery. And the last hug and kiss they had while in the waiting room before they took Gertrude into surgery was the last time that Alice ever saw Gertrude alive. Heartbreaking. Alice, of course, was an extremely strong woman, and she did not give up. But after Gertrude passed, she pretty much dedicated her life to preserving Gertrude's memory, to promoting Gertrude's work. It was always, even in life, even when Gertrude was still there, Alice's life was very much a supporting she was very much a supporting character, right? It was the Gertrude show, and Alice was just there for support. And it was basically what she had lived her life for. There was no resentment there. There was nothing. It was complete and total. It was a joy for her to help this woman. And after she was gone, it was all she knew. It was all she knew was but to help this woman and help this woman succeed. So she dedicated the rest of her life to furthering Gertrude's reputation, for publishing as many of her works as she could, just basically still helping her even though she wasn't there anymore. And she did this for another 20 years. She actually lived to be almost in her 80s, I believe, and lived a very long, very fulfilling, very, very amazing life. And Alice lived for 20 more years after that, and she passed away in March of 1967, and she arranged to be buried right next to Baby in Paris. And even in death was still very much a supporting character, and very much, this is the Gertrude show, because though she was buried right next to Gertrude, she had the engraving on her headstone. She had it done on the back of her headstone so that when people walked up, the first name that they saw was Gertrude's. I just thought that was so incredibly special and thoughtful, and really indicative of such a true and enduring love, that I just thought it was so very special. Guys, that is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it so very much. This is the eye look. All I'm going to do is add a green wing. I'm going to do a little bit of mascara, and I will, of course, post finished pictures over on Instagram and Facebook. If you are not following me over on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that good stuff, you definitely should be. I post fun content every single day, and if you're following me everywhere, you don't have to worry about missing a single moment of it. As always, I will post everything that I used in today's video in the description box below, along with the links to all my other socials. As always, no filters, no edits, no fancy lighting. It's just me sitting in front of my camera, playing with some makeup, telling you guys a beautiful love story, hoping you're enjoying what I'm doing. And until next time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're important. Bye.